ANC NEC meeting, which started this morning in Irene, south of Pretoria. The Derek Hanekom saga, of course, expected to come up. Of course, him admitting to a meeting with the EFF. Also, the public protector's damning findings on that Bosasa donation, and also those protests that we spoke about a bit earlier on. Let's continue the discussion now with from the Wits School of Governance, Professor Ivor Sarakinsky. Prof, thank you very much for your time this evening. Without a doubt, the Derek Hanekom saga will come up, but I mean, the ANC runs the risk here of having other names coming to the fore of those who met with the EFF to oust the former president, Jacob Zuma. But what do the regulations say about a member of the ANC, in this instance, meeting with a competitor?
It's not unusual. And it happens all the time, informally, in Parliament and in other circles, because on various issues, parties have to collaborate. That neither party or a single party can't drive an issue on its own. So you always have these informal engagement consultations. And what keeps things moving and what enables agreement is confidentiality. And the real problem for me isn't the names being mentioned. It's creating an environment of fear that's going to intimidate members of all parties now from coming together and discussing confidential, sensitive things in a constructive way to the benefit of the country. And I think that that's the real problem of this.
But I did say earlier, this does create a conundrum for the ANC, because you'd remember that strongly worded statement that was released just this week at about 5 to midnight, where a very strong statement worded coming from the office of the Secretary General Ace Magashule, where they referred to him, you know, as a wedge driver, you know, and clearly the ANC saying this cannot be accepted. You cannot have a senior member such as Derek Hanekom meeting with the EFF, essentially at the time to oust a sitting president. So what do the rules then say? While you may say, yes, there's nothing unusual about this, that's what Derek Hanekom himself has said, but the ANC is saying simply, no, this cannot happen.
So they're probably going to invoke the ANC constitution, which all members sign off on when they get their membership card. And that says something to the effect in various clauses that you've got to be loyal to the ANC, you've got to protect the ANC's interests at all opportunities. And they're probably going to take it in that direction. But it's not clear whether it will be successful, because it's part of factional politics and factional battles. And whichever side is dominant will prevail in the NEC in terms of what the likely outcome is to be. But I don't foresee any major fallout from this, because the battle lines are so even that a major blow to a powerful figure like Derek Hanekom could result in a whole set of counter-reactions which would destabilize the ANC further. So I think there's a stasis through a fear of poking the bear.
But also depending on the names of other individuals which might surface in the near future, of those who've also met with the EFF. I want to move on to another issue as well. I mean, this afternoon we saw at the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, the Justice Zondo saying that the President Cyril Ramaphosa, making public his affidavit to the Commission. A lot came out of that, you know, admissions that he met with members of the Gupta family, but distinctly saying that a meeting essentially where prominent issues were discussed was that relating to the bank accounts, the closure of the Gupta's bank accounts. But I just want to get your sense on, you know, the President making this affidavit public. Do you read anything from that?
Yes, it's quite significant. One of the attacks against Pravin Gordhan is that he met with the Guptas and he didn't remember it or declare it in Parliament, and there's a whole saga that flows from that. So I think what the President's advisors have done is said, let's be ultra cautious now. Let's go through your diary and let's identify every event, and let's put that onto the public record so that no one can say you were lying, you deceived us, you misinformed us, and we take questions and answers on the issues that you have put into the public domain. So I think they're trying to manage the discussion of the now president, who at the time was the deputy president, who did meet with a whole range of role players in terms of government business. And now that could be embarrassing, so they're coming clean and they're coming open in terms of managing the situation.
In the court of public opinion, you often hear people say you're guilty by association. One of the other interesting things that came out of this affidavit was where the president does make known that he says he has no recollection of meeting with Gavin Watson, for example, but he does say that he is aware that Gavin Watson had attended the wedding of his son Andile in Uganda just last year. So it kind of speaks to a close relationship of Gavin Watson to the Ramaphosas. Is there something that we can read from that, given the president's response in his affidavit?
There is something there. Why would Gavin Watson travel all the way to Uganda for a wedding for someone that he didn't feel strongly about or have a close relationship with? The unfortunate wording in that statement was, I don't recollect, I don't recall. That is legalese, I'm afraid. Either you remember or you don't remember. Yeah. It's not enough to say I don't recall. In other words, if someone says, but I saw you talking to Gavin Watson, yeah, I'm sorry, it was a long time ago, I'm a very busy person, I made an honest mistake. So it's keeping the door open for any evidence that might come about in terms of their meeting. And that suggests that it's an uneasy relationship that's there, and they're trying to manage it by using careful language to deny it without closing the door to any other evidence that suggests otherwise.
Does this create a problem? Because, I mean, judging from what he says in the affidavit, there seems to be a somewhat close relationship, as you say, between, I'm not saying for President Cyril Ramaphosa, but it certainly implies that there could be some kind of friendship between Andile as well as Gavin Watson. I mean, why would he attend the wedding if he was not your friend or a close business associate? I quite could figure.
Indeed. So it's all part of the Bosasa donation to President Ramaphosa's ANC campaign in 2017. They're trying to create a line that separates the two parties. So the donation occurred in a context separate from the personal, the family, and other relations. Yeah. And they're trying to say that there's no undue influence, and hence the I don't recall, I don't recollect. So they're putting the burden on anyone who makes accusations to provide the hard evidence. And it's unfortunate language. I would have preferred to hear something like, I didn't.
I want to go back, to the testimony of former President Jacob Zuma as well, where he spoke about how he had met the Guptas. They seemed to be business savvy. That was part of his testimony. You have now also President Cyril Ramaphosa saying he met with the Guptas, but distinctly talking about Tony Gupta and specifically pinpointing it to discussions with ANC officials regarding the closure of the bank accounts. Is this perhaps a ploy to kind of dismiss any other insinuation that he may have been, because the key issue has been who's met with the Guptas, who has not met with the Guptas. So he seems to be quite distancing himself from an actual meeting where there might have been some kind of tangible issues discussed with any member of the Gupta family.
Yes, he's trying to say, I never did a one-on-one.
Okay.
When I met, it was in terms of official responsibilities and other important ANC or government occasions, and I was never there alone. I was always there with other people. And in doing that, he's trying to say that there was no deal between me and them, and I couldn't do anything for them because nothing was discussed in terms of us doing business together in whatever form on a one-to-one basis. Very different from the meetings in Saxonwold, where there were the one-on-ones between the Guptas, allegations of the Guptas, the former president, and a whole range of cabinet ministers, where he's trying to say, I was with the group and the group engaged. And that is plausible because There was a complaint to the ANC about the banks closing their accounts.
Yes.
And the ANC did have a statement that they were going to meet to discuss it. And as long as there were numerous people there, that is a plausible explanation of that event.
All right. I want to move on to another issue now. Of course, we saw those protests outside Irene, members of what they call disgruntled ANC Youth League members protesting there. It's not the first time they're calling for the disbandment of the ANC Youth League. I heard Pulemabe a bit earlier on this afternoon say that there would be some kind of decision that will come out of this NEC meeting with regard to whether to disband or not to disband. But I mean, would you ever then, first of all, would the ANC heed to this call? Would it be in their best interest to do that, given the visuals that we're even seeing on our screen?
The relationship of the ANC Youth League to the ANC for some time now has been fraught, and that goes back to the previous leadership of Julius Malema and his co-leaders. And there's always been immense tension. And from that point on, it would seem as if the organizational structure and cohesion of the Youth League was on a downward trajectory, with a whole range of infighting battles and playing politics within the mother structure. And things have just got worse and worse and worse over time, with the EFF catching the youth vote and their numbers going up.
Yeah.
So I think that politically the pressure's on to restructure the Youth League, build it up so that it becomes a credible vehicle for the youth, is a way of counteracting the success that the EFF has had in mobilizing the youth vote. So I would expect a strong decision
Sure,
there.
Prof. But I mean, before we run out of time, would you then even see, depending of course on what the decision is out of this NEC meeting, but would you ever see a strong ANC Youth League again, inside the ANC and even outside? I mean, the role, of course, that it's played before, they didn't even, campaign. There wasn't a visible, strong campaign in the run-up to the last election. Yes. Would you see a strong ANC Youth League ever again?
But it's possible. It means that they're going to have to restructure, put office bearers in, put infrastructure in administrative capacity, to empower the Youth League branches to start to build support, build credibility. So it's probably a 5-10 year project. Whether they've got the resources to do that is an open issue. Possible, maybe unlikely in terms of the historical events that have taken place over the last 10-15 years.
Always a great pleasure having you. Thank you so much for your time. That was from the Wits School of Governance, Professor Ivor Sarakinsky joining us there, of course, as we'll await in the next few days an outcome from that ANC NEC meeting taking place today in Irene in Pretoria. Let's take a short break here on the full